It's in the genes. Parents pass down traits from generation to generation, and they also pass down hobbies and interests. Shawn Murray's father was a photographer, and so was his grandfather, so it's not surprising that he is into photographs as well. And Shawn, this is a terrific story. We love hearing about your father and your grandfather in particular. Tell us about his career as a photographer, a sports photographer.
Certainly. Well, my grandfather, Bruce Murray Sr., was a photographer, press photographer, and did freelance work also, based in Philadelphia, but traveled from New York to D.C. and covered a lot of different news events, the Hindenburg disaster, many different amazing events through those over 45 years of his career. But baseball was his true passion, his true love, and he became very close friends with Connie Mack, probably one of the most famous managers of all time. And through that friendship and his work, got very close to many ball players from in this era, mostly the 1920s and 30s, but some of the most famous ball players of all time, the men who made the game popular. The negatives that he had taken, not all of them, but a few of them that he saved for himself, were handed down to my father, Bruce Murray Jr., who was also a photographer, and then passed down to me. And I was able to do fine art prints from the original negatives, and that's what you see here today.
So this is really a tribute not only to baseball history, but also to your grandfather. I mean, what a lovely way to honor his memory, to be able to preserve and restore these photographs like this.
I love this. I mean, you don't get Ty Cobb smiling. I mean, that's a very rare photo in itself. And he was a mega star, and to capture him smiling is probably just kind of gives you the idea of this kind of wonderful art and this wonderful photography. I don't think this set really showcases it all. I don't think you can grab it all. There's a lot more here that you can't bring it all on the set.
How many did he have? How many photographs did you restore?
Well, so far I've brought out 14 baseball images and one boxing image of my grandfather's archive. I'm researching many others to try and see who was in it, when it was taken, to try to narrow it down. But the negatives are very, very fragile. They're large format, which gives such great clarity, and they're glass. They're so old they're made out of glass, the majority of them.
The interesting part of this is that this man was a press photographer, a commercial photographer. And when you think of the great photographers and the great art of photography, you think of Ansel Adams or Man Ray, but there is great art in the press photographers of this era. I know because this is what I collect. And I myself have a collection of both photos and negatives. And I'd love to see more of this stuff.
Well, I do have a website, brucemurray.com, and that would you'd be able to view some more of them on that site as well. And there's also a biography of my grandfather, such a great story about how he came into photography and his longevity in that field and his friendship with many of the ball players and so forth. A lot of people don't know my grandfather, but little by little, I feel like I'm the goodwill ambassador for him.
It looks like he almost has a relationship with these guys. I guess that's a sign of a great photographer.
Well, I love the Babe Ruth taking a picture of Lou Gehrig with the old camera there. And you see some of the photographers in the background, and my grandfather was the only one that had the foresight to come around the other side and capture this kind of amazing American moment.
And this was actually my
grandfather's camera, yeah, which was passed down. My father had it, and my father gave it to me. This was actually the photograph, the camera that took those photographs. It was a very old and very difficult thing to use because you could only take one photograph, and it took a while to get that plate holder out, turned around, and put back in again.
We just want to point out one other photograph, Babe Ruth's final game. Is that what we have down here on the floor?
Yeah, that's Babe Ruth's actual final career game. It was taken Memorial Day, 1935. And that was just an amazing capturing of a moment, probably one of my grandfather's most unique, because of the fact that no one knew that was going to happen that day. Babe Ruth didn't know that was going to happen that day. But if you look at the expression on his face, it's amazingly telling. He only played one inning of that game and turned around and walked off the field totally unexpectedly. And my grandfather captured that moment before it happened.
Really nice stuff. We thank you so much for coming in and lugging it all in with you. Thanks.
My pleasure.